I don't think I'm saying anything too radical or seditious when I say that Water 7 might be my favorite half of an arc, in all of One Piece so far. On a related note, I'm probably one of the 6 people in all of humankind who'd be hipster enough to have Usopp as their favorite character. This in turn causes some disparity. On the one hand, I fuck with Water 7 extra hard because it's a genuinely great story where my dude finally takes center stage. On the other hand, being Usopp's certified hype man means I'm not immune to discovering certain things about the character even during the East Blue days where I had nothing else to do but dick around on TV tropes. Let me be perfectly clear. Yes, I knew the Straw Hats would eventually retire Mary. I knew Luffy and Usopp would have a big argument about it, and I knew the latter would respond by fucking off for an unspecified amount of time. I knew all of that going into this arc, and let me tell you, it did not deter my enjoyment of it one bit. But you know what? I'm getting ahead of myself here. I'm sure you all are wondering what the Straw Hats have been up to since the narrative mastery that was the Foxy arc. Well, for one thing, they ran into this one marine dude, Ice Ice Guy, and credit to the animation team, they did a hella good job at making this guy's presence feel absolutely chilling. He frostbites Robin and nearly half of the crew before deciding to dip out purely on a whim, and that, by virtue of leaving his danger levels to the audience's imagination, makes him completely fucking terrifying. A few days later, the Straw Hats pretend like nothing happened, as they do, and witness a frog getting murdered by a seafaring locomotive. The hottest woman in the world points them to the train's central hub, a city named Water 7 that should absolutely be filmed in Porto Maghera when they get to that point in the live-action series. Anywho, they need a shipwright to fix up the Mary, but this appraiser dude Squaresop is like, nah bro, shit's fucked, get a new one. By then, Usopp gets mugged by the neighborhood auto shop, and the gang crashes in to avenge their buddy's honor. This leads into episode 235, or as I would like to call it, the greatest argument ever written. Reason being, I don't think I've ever seen an argument between two characters be as convincingly real as this one. Like, on the surface, it sounds petty and uninspired. Luffy says they're replacing the ship, Usopp disagrees, roll credits. Normally, I'd rather pull out my pubic hairs one by one than watch one of these scenes, cause let's face it, it's an argument based on a misunderstanding, and everybody and their grandma fucking hates misunderstandings. Now, don't get me wrong, misunderstandings can and are oftentimes the funniest shit ever, but when we're supposed to take it seriously, that's when the nerd rage starts to kick in. When Luffy pulled out a goddamn ship catalog and outright refuses to provide what should have been a very easy explanation about the Mary's condition, I was very much mirroring Usopp's frustration in thinking Luffy sounded like a flippin' asshole. And if the argument had ended right there, the title of this video would have ended up being very, very different. But no, Luffy did what we were all yelling at the screen for him to do, and he communicated. Told Usopp exactly what was going on. And as someone who actually believes that crap about open and honest communication, that should have been the end of it. Just whip out a little talk no jutsu and all your problems will be solved. Or so I thought. What happened afterwards completely trashed any doubts that I had that One Piece is a masterclass in character work. Usopp, upon given sufficient context of the situation, does not budge. If anything, he gets even more belligerent that Luffy had the gall to even consider retiring the Mary. More so than when he thought the dude was just pulling his leg. The whole sequence of these two ripping into each other with Luffy damn near kicking Usopp off of the crew was probably one of the most uncomfortable watches I've ever had. And honestly, I loved it. Which is weird, cause as an Usopp stan, you'd think I'd be all mad that they made my boy look like a whiny little bitch. But I wasn't, and let me break it down as to why. It's one thing to have an argument where one party is right and the other one is wrong. Easy to know who to root for. It's also one thing where both parties have a point and neither one is entirely wrong. Also easy cause you can root for both of them simultaneously. But it's another thing altogether where one party is clearly right, but you can still, on some level, root for the wrong person. It's a damn near impossible thing to write, and freaking Oda managed to do it. And I know a bunch of y'all are probably gonna be like, oh, but you're an Usopp bro, of course you want to take his side. No. You see, I was totally with Luffy on his stance with the Mary. I'm just saying, as much as Usopp was being a lunkhead, his position in the argument was entirely believable from a storytelling perspective. Keep in mind, the series has raised a dozen death flags about the Mary's demise by this point, while simultaneously highlighting Usopp's investment in it. Now, I don't know about you guys, but if I had spent 100 hours trying to fix something me and my friends love, went through hell and back trying to protect the funds for it, only to wake up to my friend very casually saying, hey, let's junk this thing, I'd be pretty fucking pissed off too. Now, obviously Luffy's argument was sound and reasonable, but that's only because we had a bird's eye view of the conversation that went down at the Galila. You really think this guy explained the Mary's condition with the nuance and specificity that Kaku, Polly, and the bird guy did? Nah, man. As much as I'm always pulling for Luffy's wisdom, being tactful is definitely not the guy's strong suit. More often than not, conflict escalates because of what isn't said rather than what is said, and it's astoundingly easy to project feelings that likely aren't even there. When Usopp started going on about how easily they could dump his ass just like they could do to the Mary, it's like, yeah, he's the weakest member, and intellectually they probably all know it, but no one on the crew has ever thought less of him for it. But because Luffy was presenting himself as being callous with the Mary, it's no wonder Usopp was beating himself up over it. That said, it's also partly his fault too for never talking about his insecurities until it was too late, and it's just a whole big fucking mess, you know? And now I'm starting to wonder if this is how wars start, you know? Just people making their own assumptions to shield their own feelings of inadequacy. Anyway, they duke it out, and One Piece does that thing they do where they turn stupid gags like the Tabasco star into serious business. Unfortunately, Usopp gets bodied again because prep work can only take you so far, and the Straw Hats have to deal with the fallout of losing 3 members in one story arc. That's right, 3. Turns out Robin got tagged by the 9th Division of the Cheese Pizza Corps and made the respectable decision to quietly turn herself in. And Chopper is like, dude, I can't believe Robin of all people got busted for cheese pizza. I mean, let's face it, Sanji, if it was going to be anyone, you'd be the first one on everybody's list. No offense. And then Curly Brow, without a hint of irony, goes, and I'm like, Sanji, bro, as a fellow simp, this is one of those few times where you absolutely did not cook. Like, Jesus Christ, man. So, yeah, things honestly get kind of depressing after all that. But on a more positive side, we do get to meet Franky, the soon-to-be newest member of the Straw Hat crew. Like I said, I can only avoid so many spoilers. Now, to tell you the truth, at first I was like, really? This guy? This coke-addicted, camel-toed Guy Fieri-looking ass going super? Like, how the hell do you expect me to just get used to all that? Apparently, very easily, because One Piece just had to go and do that thing they do where they give the most ridiculous characters a devastatingly complex backstory. Like, come on now. That whole thing about the birth of the Sea Train and Franky losing his body to said train and the absolute shit show that went down during Tom's trial needs to be taught in classes or something. Like, I wasn't expecting a pro-gun argument in a Japanese manga for boys that probably didn't piss off too many people, but hey, I'm down with it. So yeah, I like Franky. He's a chill guy with a sick backstory and a buttload of plot relevance. And speaking of which, Water 7 is absolutely brimming to the rim with plot that I was actually excited to unfurl for once. I say this because if you've seen the rest of my One Piece videos, like, comment, and subscribe! You can probably tell that I tend to talk more about the characters more so than I do the story. That's not to say I don't enjoy the One Piece story, it's excellent on an off day. I'm just saying, as a personal preference, geeking out over my babies generally takes precedence. If I'm actually this interested to talk about the plot, then you've got yourselves a damn good plot. Like, we got the whole Aqua Laguna thing going on, we got the mayor wrapped up in an assassination attempt, we got secret identities on both sides of the equation that also build upon previous plot threads regarding the Poneglyphs and the Pluton, while also introducing villains that have a stake in the story, like Rob Lucci and the Spandex Dude, and you know what? Forget it. I have a whole bucket list of things that Water 7 introduced that I couldn't possibly touch upon in one concise video, so let me just get my main point across. Water 7 is the most hopeless saga so far, cause it's the first time where I actually felt the Straw Hats could legitimately fall apart. Like, friendship has always been the name of the game for One Piece, but I don't think it was, like, ever truly challenged until now. Like, Usopp versus Luffy was like that one friend that threatens to break up the D&D group because they contested the DM's decisions too much. One false move can make or break the campaign. Case in point, the absolutely heartbreaking betrayal that came about with the introduction of CP9. Side note, this was the one reveal that I was not spoiled on, so you can bet your ass that my jaw was to the floor. Like, god damn it, Oda, how dare you make me think that Kaku, Khalifa, Bluno, and Rob Lucci were just a bunch of fun, wacky goofballs for me to root for, only for them to be a part of some top secret special task force who have no qualms about subduing a guy that they only pretended to be friends with for years. Like, who gave you permission to shatter my heart like that? But you know, this ain't Jujutsu Kaisen or anything, so luckily we have Luffy D Monkey around to be our rubbery beacon of light. Always bending, but never breaking. Like, I appreciate the drama bombs as much as the next guy, but seeing him get sandwiched inside that building and Zoro getting the Santa Claus treatment was some much needed levity on their part. And it all came to a head when I saw the crew co-opting a glorified bullet bill with 10,000 support characters, and I was like, shit. So this is the magic of One Piece, huh? Like, despite being spoiled on so many things and knowing that success is basically a foregone conclusion, I'm pumped. Like, this show is just so inherently optimistic that I can just leave my cold, hard pragmatism at home and just enjoy the show. So that concludes the first half of what is evidently a lot of people's favorite arc. I hope you enjoyed the ride so far, cause I've just boarded an express line running all the way down to Enies Lobby, and I have to say, there is one particularly famous national landmark that I am very much looking forward to seeing. One Piece.